doctorate in cancer research, and
Oh, yeah.
you tried to have him explain what he's doing, and he can't explain it in terms that we can understand it.
Right.
So it's beyond my.
Yeah,
They're not used to talking in normal terms.
exactly.
Well, Nate's project basically is, they're sampling the sewers at RIT for traces of the COVID virus. And so they have to sample the raw sewage to test for the waste. And I said, this sounds like a golden opportunity for student work study. You know, say to a freshman, here's a bucket,
Yeah.
go to it.
Go for it.
And then part of the idea is that, they would sample at, X place and know that dorms A, B, C, the sewers go into that
Yeah.
sewage so that they know that the COVID, if it's positive,
Came
that the
from-
COVID
Oh,
wouldn't
wait.
come from dorm A,
Did
B,
you guys
C.
just count,
Yes, sir?
did you count the offerings in the plate in the cabinet?
Uh-oh.
You always forget that.
Uh-oh.
Your job
I
is
always
not
thought
done.
you put them out there on the.
No,
Are you sure there's any in here?
I am positive. Wait till you see.
Only half done.
Well, Carla Hausman and Chad stopped by the other day, and they brought all their offering envelopes from March. About 3 inches of offering envelopes, and from dozen two of them, and a couple others, so. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so I didn't show you this little film last week, but as we start to talk about Ruth this week, I want to just show you this little film about Ruth that is just, it's very cute. I don't know, cute, but sweet. It's a sweet retelling of the book of Ruth, and it's about 5 minutes long.
Sometimes the journey chooses you and not the other way around. I don't know how, but I just knew that you would lead me to sacred ground. I was living in a place that it was time for me to leave. I had lost all of my faith, but I was ready to believe. So where you go, I'll go. Where you live will be my home. I will walk with you until the day I die. It won't always be easy. It won't always be sweet. But that's alright, as long as you're with me. In the middle of the night, I went and lay down by your feet. I knew that if the time was right, you would welcome me. I crept away before the break of day. By then I knew that you would come to me. And where you go, I'll go. Where you live will be my home. I will walk with you until the day I die. It won't always be easy. It won't always be sweet. But that's alright, as long as you're with me. And all the people in the gate, and all the elders, they shall say, we are the witnesses today to this covenant you made. generations pass, generations come, and now our separate histories are one. And where you go, I'll go. Where you live will be my home. I will walk with you until the day I die. It won't always be easy. It won't always be sweet. But that's alright, as long as you're with me. Yeah, that's alright, as long as you're with me.
How about that? I just thought that was a sweet little song. So we have looked at the book of Ruth last week, and I said if you wanted to do something like that might look like homework, you could do this tree thing. I had the tree up there, the picture of the tree, and I did one a couple years ago, so this is part of that. And this, I have to tell you, this idea I actually got from a workshop I attended on helping children and teenagers deal with trauma and traumatic events. And sometimes when a person has some kind of traumatic event, it occupies their whole being for a while. But this is a way to say there is more to you than just your trauma. Okay, so it can be a very healing kind of thing to say there's more to you than just your trauma. There's a lot to all of us. But I think, as we were looking at Ruth and telling the story of Ruth, I thought it would be a good thing for us to do also and say, what does it look like? What does your story look like? And particularly in the question that's in the center there, where has God been in each of those? If you haven't thought about that for a while, where has God been in your life? Okay, what has he been doing? So, in the top left-hand corner, it says roots, which I know are at the bottom, but that's where you start. Okay. So here's where I came from. My roots pretty much are, I grew up in Ohio, in northern Ohio. I said Ohioan, but I should say northern Ohio. Because people in southeast Ohio are different than people in northern Ohio.
Yeah.
Very true.
Okay. My father-in-law, mother-in-law grew up in southeast Ohio, and they're kind of different from those of us who grew up in Cuyahoga County. So I grew up in northern Ohio. I've always been a Missouri Synod Lutheran. I've never been anything else. And the Cahill family is a pretty strong root. My mother was a Hartwig, but her family wasn't as close and strong as my dad's family. So I identify more as a Cahill than as a Hartwig. And the thing with roots is, at least for me, my roots keep me anchored. I'm in Ohio. I'm a Missouri Synod Lutheran, and I don't know how to think about being something other than a Missouri Synod Lutheran. I mean, I've hung around people from Ashland, where there were people from a lot of denominations, and that kind of expanded my horizons some. But my roots keep me anchored, but there are some roots that some people might trip over. And I can't help that because they're my roots, but I can't help it if they're going to trip over them. Like, for instance, certain people might look at me and say, and use that old word, WASP, right? White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Well, ta-da! And it's not that I'm proud of it or flaunting it necessarily, but that's it. It's there. And sometimes people get hung up over that, but I can't help that. Okay, so let's ask this question. Raise your hand if you grew up in Ohio north of Columbus. Okay, almost all of us.
I did not.
You did not. Could we ask where you grew up?
I grew up in Maryland.
In Maryland?
Oh, yeah. that's
Okay,
different.
whereabouts in Maryland?
It was Cecil County, which is right in the corner of the state on the, eastern side.
Oh, okay,
Right, we kind of bordered Pennsylvania and Delaware.
okay, in that corner of
Farming
Pennsylvania.
community At that time, it is not no longer, it no longer is.
What's no longer?
I said, no longer a farming community.
Oh, no, okay. Do you know, I'm sure you've met Frank and Elsie Garrett. They were from here, but then they lived in Maryland for a while too, in Accident, which apparently it's in that part of Maryland that kind of gets squeezed up by Virginia before it comes up.
I was
What's
gonna
in that
say
area?
People say that, and it's Virginia, or it could be Washington.
Yeah,
DC.
yeah.
Yeah, right in there, okay.
Yeah, it's in there. Very good. How many of you grew up and have always been Lutherans? Okay.
I'm kind of in that weird gray area.
Oh, you're in a weird gray area. Okay. Okay. Where you haven't always, you've been other things.
Well, I did Boy Scout stuff in the Lutheran church growing up.
Yeah.
My grandparents and stuff went to Disciples of Christ Church.
Yeah.
And my dad's side of the family all came from a bunch of strict Irish Catholics that never, his generation, his siblings never went to the Catholic church. They went to other ones.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that kind of left me bopping around to wherever
Okay.
different ones there went to that along the way.
Okay. So what else do we have for background besides that and Lutherans? Anybody else?
I grew up Methodist, kind of the strict, pretty conservative Methodist.
How conservative was that?
No alcohol, no. That
No
was,
dancing.
no dancing,
Strict, yeah.
rules. And I don't know if the church really taught that, but as a kid, my perception was rules, rules, rules. You can't do this, you can't do this, or you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Mhm.
And it's kind of sad, but that's sort of what I
Yeah.
remember of church is you shall not. But
Well, okay, so hold on, because you said that. So any of us Lutherans, do we remember, do you remember in your church whether dancing was allowed? Or were you not old enough to remember that?
I don't remember that.
It was a lot, but you had to stay like so far away. So far away.
Leave room for the Holy Ghost.
Leave room for the Holy Ghost?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have dances at church, but if we go to youth gatherings or something that was like, you can square dance, or have a sock hop, that was one of them.
Well, there was only one thing I went to down with it. It was like the group thing where they had they didn't have, it was a smaller church, so they didn't have
Yeah.
dance or stuff there. But they actually had a retreat thing down in Mansfield by the telescope and stuff there. There's some kind of Christian
Yeah.
camp right there and stuff. And they had some kind of group thing down there and stuff and that. And it was funny is this dude had brought a yardstick along.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, he was like,
There you go.
really,
Well, we were not supposed to have dancing for years and years and years, but we would, at youth gatherings, Pam, I don't know if you experienced this at youth gathering, but you get in the hotel at night, and they'd have in the ballroom, and they would, in some of them, the kids, they'd have a dance for the kids, the music and the kids. You didn't? Okay. It's probably because I was a community life builder a couple of times, and part of our job in the evenings was to monitor the dances to make sure they weren't dirty dancing. Because that was in the 80s, and they were like, oh my gosh, you guys, we cut it out. All right, so besides Lutherans and Methodists, what else we got in terms of faith background?
Baptist.
Baptist?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was Northern Baptist, which was.
A variety of Baptists.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
variety.
right. And I was not in the kind where the lipstick and dancing and all that was prohibited. But my
Okay.
dad came from Southern Baptist, and that's
Okay.
I don't know, like I said, mine came from, I don't know, a little bit of Methodist, a lot of Disciple of Christ, a little bit of Lutheran, a little bit of
Okay.
Catholic, so kind of a hodgepodge variety, but, when.
And
I'm
Larry's
sorry,
our Catholic
Kind of Baptist.
brother, yeah.
But when
Grew
she-
up with the nuns,
When
right?
she was talking about.
None of this
Rosa,
and none of
immediately
that.
comes to mind, like, my best friend, grew up in, the Mormon church,
Oh, yeah.
and talked about list of rules.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine.
Yep. All right, so these are our roots,
The
okay?
revival.
And some of us apparently grew up in pretty close to the same forest, I guess. You know, whether it's, you know, Ohio or faith life or whatever.
Yeah.
Where did you see God in some of that? In your roots, in the background and so forth. What times and what circumstances did you see God working in there? Like for me, I'll say it, I'll start. For me, where I saw God working in that was, we always went to church and Sunday school on Sunday. It was never necessarily the law, you know, but it was understood. We polish our shoes on Saturday nights and go to church on Sunday school on Sunday. And there was never an argument.
Oh, yeah.
Better be
So it was
sick,
me.
sick and or dying.
Yep.
Yeah,
There was no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
Didn't matter.
yeah. We all get in the car and we all go.
Mine was kind of the opposite, that from my parents' upbringing, his were very strict in the church stuff,
Mhm.
and kind of left I guess, a little bit of a bad taste in my father's mouth.
Yeah.
And my mom was kind of church, too, that hers was, semi-strict and stuff.
Yeah,
So, I don't know, it kind of, fell into me back when I got, like 8 or 9, actually interested in that, was basically taking myself.
Yeah.
And stuff. It was kind of the opposite.
okay. All right. Anybody else want to add anything to the roots thing here that I didn't? Yeah, I mean, because this is me, but anybody else want to add anything from your personal thing? Anybody besides Rob that you want to mention? All right, how about let's go to trunk. The trunk is what gives you stability or even resilience, because I don't know if you see some trees blowing in the wind, trees are pretty stable, but they do bend in the wind sometimes, depending on the wind. So what gives you stability and resilience? So I've listed a few things there. My faith, Bev certainly does. Laughter, good friends who know me really well, music, reading, whatever. So those are things that I can return to keep calm and stable and, but also help me as things get a little hairy. That's what resilience is. It's what helps you as things get a little hairy or a little strained, that kind of stuff. So, how about some of the rest of you? What helps you and gives you and anchors you and gives you stability? What do you turn to when you're stressed?
I don't know, a lot of your same list, but I'm also, as you know, a big outdoor fan.
Yeah, okay. Outdoors, that's the one. That's a common one. Anybody else or no?
Besides Tom, I would add, on your list, that's a lot of things that I would put too, but I would also put my greater family.
Okay. Okay. I have a suspicion some here would say something like projects.
Keeping busy.
Keeping busy. Yeah. Doing some kind of projects. Okay, so we have several trees out in front of our house that are big maple trees. And a couple of them have big knot holes in them. I mean, they're just not knot holes. You could put a house through some of these. And there are places where a limb was cut off, you know how that works, and then you get this knot hole. And things live in the knot hole sometimes, okay? And so the trunk is a stable thing, but sometimes we have knot holes in that part of our life in which things live.
Squirrels.
And it's kind of hard to talk about what the things are that are living in there, but what's hiding in the knot hole, in mine in particularly, is I have a need to belong and to be understood. Okay, I as introverted as I often am, I like to belong with others, and I like to be part of other groups. But I also want to be understood, okay? I have a pretty hard need to be understood, and so does Bev. And so sometimes her need to be understood and my need to be understood result in
No
No
understanding.
understanding.
no understanding.
Yep.
Yeah, at a rather high decibel level. So that's what we said that way. Yeah. So I don't know if that's something that you want to think about or comment on or something. If you have a particular knot hole you can identify with. I'm going to comment on this one that says, where has God been in each of these? God is even in the knot hole. Okay. I know that because of his love, that's a place where I know that I fully belong. And that's a place where I know that he fully understands everything. You know, like I've said often, Jesus leans into God's ear and says, be merciful because I know what they're going through. And if I don't get that anywhere else, I know that at least that's happening with God. Anybody else? Okay, let's talk about the branches. What am I reaching for? Some of the branches reach out, some reach down, some reach up. Some of the branches reach out for me because I want to connect with other people, see how you're doing here and there. You know, I don't like to be completely isolated. Some of the branches reach down because of the burdens of deep empathy for somebody. There are sometimes when my wife doesn't think I have a lot of empathy. And maybe she's right about some of those times. But there are other times and other people when I really do have deep empathy, I feel like, for the issues and struggles of certain other people. And then there are some branches that reach up, you know, to say, you know, God, please help me, please be with me. Let me praise you, let me offer you thanks, and so forth. So what do you think? Branches in your tree. What do you reach for? Connection. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to say more about that, or? No, you don't have to. I'm just.
No, I just think well, with teaching and then the job I'm doing now that reaches out to that mental health piece, like when you talk about, I mean, there are times when I know I've been described as loving but firm.
Yeah.
So in that firmness part, if people don't really know you, they don't realize that maybe you're being firm to show somebody else that they do have that resilience and that they can be strong.
Yes.
In that place that is so hard for them. Yes, it's tough, and I can cry along with you, and I often do, and often leave sleep for how that piece of me that has to be a little tougher, like, you can do this.
Yeah.
Okay, you gotta stop that weenie whining stuff, and I'm a big whiner myself at times. But I guess it's, I don't know. that's it. I wanna connect and, you know, my motto is, I don't like it when people don't like me.
Okay.
Ah,
You know, when there's.
I hear you, sister.
It's like, why don't you like me? What did I do?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I'm not gonna have to be their best buddy, I'm not saying that, but, you know, it's, that bugs me most of all, just finding that piece, and I guess I've used the term, and I've had to say in evaluations, that rational detachment, realizing that people are gonna attack you for whatever reason, and you just have to know that it might not be personal.
Yeah.
And not have anything to do with you.
That's right.
So that's a big struggle.
I understand what you're saying, you know. Bev will tell you that for the first years of ministry, I would, you know, people would come out after I'd preach a sermon, and 100 people could come out, and 99 people would say, I like that sermon, and one person could say, that sermon sucked, and I would go, oh man, for a week I would dwell on that.
Yeah, absolutely,
You
it's
know.
like.
You can't make everybody
you have
happy.
all those positives in that one little thing. to
Right.
see.
Right, but I think
Right.
that's a learning thing. I mean, you know,
Right.
you have to learn that you can't make everybody happy, because there's a tendency inside, a lot of people to
Yep.
to do that.
And you have to learn that, and you know, I told people in the doctoral program at Ashland, I eventually got healed from all of that, from most of that, and then I had to write a dissertation. So, and they're like, do this, don't do that, I told you not to do that. It's like, so I know what you're saying, Charlotte. Yeah. Anybody else? What are you reaching for?
I guess mine, and I'm not sure whether it's a knuckle or a branch or whatever, that, I don't know, I'm working on a shortfall, I guess, of listening that, I don't know, was bit me in the tuchus a few times along the way that the older I get, I guess the more of a flaw I find it, I guess. That
Okay.
it's not that I'm not flexible or not willing to listen or not there, but I don't know, I've tended to done more talking than listening, I guess, over time, which
Okay.
is
Okay.
not gone over well in some categories.
I'm gonna say at this point, when, you know, the question in the middle is, where has God been in each of these? I'm gonna say at this point, you know, in that whole conversation about, you know, learning about being accepted and all that other kind of stuff, I have seen a lot of God working in my life in conversations that I've had with various counselors over the years. With people who, you know, are able to do to me what Charlotte was talking about, saying, you know, you don't need to whine about this, or this is how we could think about it, and, you know, and so I have really felt the influence and the work of God in the various counselors, and a lot of them in very unofficial capacities. I'm acquainted with a number of counselors for a number of reasons, and just in talking with them over coffee, they'll say something that'll be like, oh yeah, okay. All right, how about leaves? Anybody else before we go to leaves? You want to talk about your branches yet or no? All right, how about leaves on the tree? What gives you life, and what are you growing into? So what gives you life? What are the things right now that give you life, that you turn to and say, oh, this is good, this is what it's all about?
Her to-do list.
Her to-do list, okay.
Your task.
How does that fit in with your project?
What's that?
How does that fit in with your project?
I think that's pretty good, because Heidi must know his emotional needs really well. You know, he has this need to do projects, so she gives him a list, right?
No, just one at a time.
Just one at a time, okay.
Yes. Every hour.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Well, if he runs out of projects, I have a few if you wanna send him my way.
Oh, no, he
No, no.
still has a dozen on the list.
No, sorry, Rob, but you know, when she runs out of projects for me, he comes over here and does the project.
Yeah.
And then they work, and then there, you know?
And sometimes
I
they
don't know,
work
I'm
and
kinda sick of
sometimes
the
they
ones I have,
crash.
I'm willing to trade projects.
So, are you willing to trade projects? Okay, so we need to have somebody crawl down in the septic and replace 2 pumps right now, Rob, so that's what.
Does it come complete with a hazmat suit?
No.
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
You just jump in knee deep in slush and go for it.
We've got a mathematical formula you can figure out if there's any
Yeah.
problem there.
Yeah, Nate
Yeah,
has a
there you
formula.
go.
to figure- yeah.
Right.
Yeah, have we done the COVID testing?
Yeah, there we go.
Send
We'll
a
call
sa-
Nate.
Send a sample in.
I don't think he needs a mathematical model for one, one sump and that's it.
I'm not totally opposed, but
Okay. So what gives, here's what gives me life. Some of the leaves have been around for a while. Some of them are new like that, like you see. Some, we have now grandchildren and parents changing situations, as Bev knows. And then I also have, these are not yet leaves, but maybe buds. So I will confess that periodically, when I've had a bad slice of pizza or something, I think about retirement. But not very often, so it's not something that gives me life yet, but it's in the background always. Okay.
Way back.
See, and this is what happens. Yeah, so as you say that, I said not leaves, but maybe buds, I think of, Don Knotts. We have to nip it in the bud.
Nip it, nip it, nip it,
Nip it, nip it, nip it.
Fight with him, take Tuesdays off. So you gotta fight with him to take Tuesdays off.
I know,
I know.
I haven't given up, but I've slowed down.
Yeah.
Bar the door Tuesday mornings, don't let them in.
I actually had somewhat of a day off yesterday. I went up to Carolyn's and did some work at her house. Projects. Yeah. All right, so how about the rest of you? What gives you life? What do you like to do? What do you like to do, and what do you find yourself growing into?
I don't know, I'm kind of in a rebudding stage. All my leaves have kind of fallen off the last year.
Okay.
I'm kind of trying to rebud the tree, so.
I get that. What do you enjoy doing? Come on, doesn't anybody enjoy doing anything?
I enjoy coming here and harassing the rest of you.
Okay. What's fun for you guys, or is nobody having fun?
I like to go play bridge, and I like to go to lunch, and I like to do a lot of things that I'm not able to do right now.
Yeah.
All right, there you go, all right.
I don't know. I still got the whole outside thing, and I don't know, fishing's on there and the thing, but that never seems to, I don't know, hasn't worked out.
All right, how about some of the rest? Things you normally like to do, but you're not able to do. I mean, that's some of that's
Travel.
travel.
Yeah, travel.
Okay. Okay, you all nodded. So let's do this. Let's just ask some random questions. Where in the state of Ohio would you think you might like to travel to just for fun? Any place you've always wanted to go in the state of Ohio? No, you don't know.
I don't know, I'd like to get back down to Hocking Hills.
Hocking
Yeah.
Hills.
Yeah. Riverboat cruise out of Cincinnati.
Riverboat cruise out of Cincinnati. Okay. Okay, how about in the continental United States? Any place you'd like to go in the continental United States you haven't been to yet?
Got a
Yosemite.
long list of those, but,
Just one.
Yosemite.
Pick one.
I don't know, I'd like to see the Vegas Strip, I'm just kinda
Vegas
curious about
Strip.
the buildings.
Yeah,
and
Yosemite.
Yosemite,
Vermont.
Vermont. home of Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Whale watching.
Whale watching, yes.
Alaska.
That's where
Alaska,
where we'd like to go. Alaska doesn't count as continental United States.
Oh, it's all right.
It's on our continent.
It's in our it's in our continent, that's the way I look at it.
That's pretty good.
Like Washington
Okay.
and Oregon, actually,
Yeah.
you can whale watch from there.
Whale watching would be good. We've never been to the Grand Canyon, we talk about that every once in a while.
Just a big hole in the ground.
Big
Yeah.
hole in the
It is.
ground.
Very big hole.
A little bit of water at the bottom of
A
it.
few places where I
Yeah.
got sent there where I didn't get to actually enjoy it because I wasn't there long enough to. I was too busy working. Like I'd like to get back out to San Diego.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
see the zoo and the
Yeah.
SeaWorld and the fun
I,
stuff.
I was out there last year with San Diego and at the Church Extension Fund conference. And Pastor Taloni and I, the conference ended at noon on Sunday and we weren't flying back until Monday, so we said, what are we gonna do Sunday afternoon? We thought we should go to the zoo. Well, the San Diego Zoo is like $50 a pop just to get in. We're like, holy
Oh, wow.
Toledo.
Yeah,
I know.
expensive.
So we ended up going to the carrier, the aircraft carrier Midway, which is docked in the harbor. That was only $25. But it was fascinating. It was just astonishing, the size of this critter and the technology and the engineering that went into building that thing, so.
And that's old stuff.
And that's old stuff.
And it's a small one.
And it's a
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
a fourth
Yeah.
of the size of the new job.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it was fascinating. So yeah, San Diego, okay.
And just
Where,
for
if you
future
had,
reference-
if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you like to go?
Europe.
Europe? Any place in particular? Germany, right?
Germany.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Germany, but I'd love to go see Norway.
Okay.
Never been to Norway.
It's pretty.
Switzerland.
Go up there to
Switzerland?
the northern
Okay.
Yeah.
circle.
Switzerland is no
See the
star,
northern
yes.
lights.
Northern Lights,
Great.
okay.
Ireland.
Ireland?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that
Ireland.
one is
Yeah, I
definitely
haven't
on the
been to
list.
Ireland yet.
I like to see, like the pyramids in South America.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of the weird history sites, I guess I call it.
Places today or places 40 years ago?
Yeah.
The places I'd like to go to are 40 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. When you could still get around with no problems.
When you didn't have to fear for your life.
Fear for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
Oh, I don't even wanna go to Akron anymore.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
I get a little jealous of Nate every time he goes on one of his overseas trips. It's like, I would like to go there with you, can I just come
Yeah.
with you,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, cause he goes to some interesting, off-the-wall sorts of places, so.
Calculating sewage or something else?
No,
Just-
he does math work, he has graduate students from all over the world, so he goes to places like Rwanda and, where is it that they have a facility? There's one of the UAEs that they have
Someplace in UAE.
an
Yeah.
RIT extension in one of the Gulf states there. So he goes there. When he was doing his work overseas, in Oxford, he and Kathy would sometimes take trips and they would go to places like Malta and Iceland and Finland and places. Iceland might be a place to go to. That would be cool. All right, how about, and the things that give me life, what I'm growing into there, the question is, where has God been in each of these? I have seen God at work in so many different ways here at Christ the King. I'm just going to focus on that. I've seen him at work in so many different ways. I've seen him at work in our marriage, seen him at work in our family. I've seen how he works in our other congregations in our district, but I've seen him work in so many ways here at Christ the King over 30 years. And that's one of the privileges of being a longtime pastor in the same place. Sometimes pastors, they go from place to place, but, Christy and her daughter were here this morning. I think when we got here, Christy was about the age that Kaylee is, you know, she was
Yeah,
like,
you're about right.
she was like early elementary school when we got here, you know. And to see that whole grown-up thing, that whole generational thing, and, you know, is just a very cool, to see the work of God in a family over decades, and to be a witness to that is just awesome. And, you know, at the same time, to realize, Kaylee was looking at the memorial lists here, you know, and that are on the wall behind here, the memorial plaques. And she didn't know what they were. She was just reading the names. And I said, well, these are all the people of Christ the King who have died in 40 years. And she said, oh. And then she said a very wise thing. I don't want my name to be up there for a long time. I don't want your name to be up there for a long time either, hon. You know, it was a wonderful
Yeah,
thing.
really.
But to realize, as I look at those names, there's some names on that list that a lot of folks who are here don't even know. You know, I mean, I knew a lot of them. There's some from before I got here, but there are some that some of you guys don't even know. Never met them. You know, but they were part of our life here at Christ the King. And that's the way it always is, I guess. And so that leads me to fallen leaves. Fallen leaves, what have I let go of? And some relationships, sometimes it's because people have died, you know, so you just kind of let go of that relationship. It's gone. Like all my aunts and uncles are gone, my dad. You know, I've got cousins, but I don't, it might have my one aunt, my mother's sister is the only one who's still alive of that generation. And Bev's dad. You know, but that's it. Bev has two aunts though. But anyway, of the Cahill family, my side, and folks here have died and gone to heaven. And then there's other folks that have relocated. You know, so you let go of that relationship in a different way. Matt and his family are out in Los Angeles, so that whole relationship is different than it ever was when they were close to home. Some of the activities I used to do that I don't do anymore, just because things have happened, times have changed. And some ministries that I have done in the past. I was the director of evangelism for the SELC district for probably 15 to 20 years. I don't even remember. And I finally got rid of it. I don't do that anymore. In fact, people will sometimes, pastors will sometimes ask me, what do you know about outreach, this or that? I say, nothing. I don't do that anymore. You have to ask somebody who actually does that. I'm not in charge of that anymore. That acronym there is Medina County Coalition Against Human Trafficking. I did that for a couple of years. I haven't been involved in that for several more years. And I've really enjoyed not having to do weddings recently. That's just been...
I'm just surprised to see that one on the list, actually. You crossed off doing those?
I'm not doing, well, I've first of all, nobody actually wants to get married here because the building is too small.
Right.
Okay, they want a big, glorious place, and one of the nice things about Christ the King is it's neither big nor glorious, you know, as far as brides are concerned. So nobody wants to get married here, so that's a good thing. We don't have young ladies of marriageable age currently, so that's another plus. Although there were 3 of them in church this morning that are getting close. So maybe that'll be a good target date for retirement, just before they start, you know, getting serious.
It'll probably be a triple wedding too.
No, I don't know. Well, it might be, you know, as close as they are,
Yeah.
they might, you know.
Now
They
you got another 10 years, maybe.
Yeah. So otherwise, we don't, like I said, we don't have any young ladies of marriageable age. So every once in a while, somebody will come. And I've decided a couple of years ago, I'm just not really in the mood to do off-site weddings anymore. I did a number of them over the years, you know, in VFW Hall or, you know, I did one at Mapleside a number of years ago, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm just not really in the mood to do that anymore. If you don't want to do it here, then don't ask me. And that's particularly true of people who aren't members of the congregation. Now, there are some people who are members of the congregation that I have done off-site weddings for them. You know, but they're members, you know, and that's been okay.
That's different.
But by and large, and I've kind of cut out, you know, people call and say, can you come over to so-and-so and do a wedding? No, I don't think so. I'm just not interested in doing that. I'd rather have them here in the house of God, I guess, than, but it has to be a real special circumstance otherwise. So, no. And I don't, and Rob, I'm gonna tell you the honest truth, I don't know too many pastors who actually like to do weddings. There's not many of us who do. And I told this to one of the funeral directors at Waite Funeral Home a few years ago. I said, you know, most pastors that I know would rather do a funeral than a wedding. He said, well, I know why that is. And he said, and I said, well, why? And he said, because it's the funeral director who has to put up with all the crap and getting it arranged. You just have to come in and do the service. So, but in a wedding, you have to put up with all the crap and getting it arranged too. And I was like,
I don't know.
yeah, that's probably true.
That's true.
3 times the size of there, because it was my best friend, the wife's best friend, grandparents and parents, and that was, you know, and my sister, and that was it. So, you know, there was
Yeah.
a dozen total, so, you know.
And you know, and that was yours.
Huh?
And that was you, but I could tell you horror stories.
I've seen
Or
it.
eye rollers, if
Actually,
you want to say, you know.
You know, we had to remodel back at the Methodist church and stuff, you know, upstairs, because they wanted their private dressing areas
Yeah,
and
yeah.
their whole, and
Anyhow. So I have given up a number of these things, and we all, you know, I bet you can think of some things that you've had to let go of over the years. Not to do anymore. I mean, retirement does that, for one thing. You have to let go of a bunch of stuff when you retire, I suppose.
Didn't know you flew though, Civil Air Patrol.
No, I didn't. I was the moral leadership officer for all the good it did, so.
But in retirement, you can pick up other things to do that you weren't able to do before.
That's the theory anyway.
That is.
Yes, actually, that's true, I suppose. You know, years ago, we had a lot of senior citizens at my first church in Chicago, and I said, you know, we should have a senior citizens group, and they said, we're too busy. We don't want a senior citizens group. We're too busy doing other stuff. I was like, okay, fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you look forward to retirement, and then the next thing you know, you're busier than you were when you worked,
Yeah.
You don't have
trying to
time
catch
go
up
to
on
work.
everything. Then then all of a sudden, everything's done, you're going, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah, now what?
Now what? That's why you have a daughter who calls and says, Dad!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will say that I have seen, I have seen God in a number of these things, and some of the activity. I used to really enjoy being in the Medina Orchestra. I had fun. It was very, it was cool. It was fun. But I just haven't done it in a number of years.
Didn't know they had one, actually.
Yeah, I think they still do, but
Oh,
they
yeah.
do. But we had fun. We played in
And the Medina Band.
Medina Band. Were you in the Medina Band, Joanne?
About that one up in,
Or no, you're just familiar with it?
Yeah, I just know some people who were.
It was kind of behind, I guess, ahead of my time is, I guess Litchfield used to have quite the.
They had a community band in
Band.
Litchfield. For the last up to the last couple of years, they did.
I don't know, it was kind of back when we were doing the Cub Scout parades and stuff, they were trying to get them out and stuff, and they never really,
Yeah.
they kind of.
But some of these happened because, our boys were in Scouts, and once they were done with Scouts, I kind of walked away from it too, eventually, So you do that. But, I'm not saying God wasn't there. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that some of these things you just leave by the wayside as you,
Yeah.
it's a part of life, right?
Everything changes,
Everything changes. Yep,
not always for the better, but things always change, nothing stays the same.
right.
No, like mine, you talk about stuff like fell off, like, really look at like friends and stuff that with everything I've had go on the last few years, I'm kind of the opposite, that I got on Facebook and
Yeah.
started reconnecting with, relatives and friends that, I hadn't talked to in 20, 30 years.
So, yeah, okay. So anything else we want to say, because we're almost at the end of time, anything else you want to say or add in here about your own experience, your own life, where you may have said, in this particular place, God was pretty clear? Anybody else want to share anything about that?
Well, things change as you age, and different things become important, and God works in different areas of your life.
Yep. Yes, that's true. That's true. All right, tell you what, let's close with prayer then. Father in heaven, we know that throughout our lives you have been taking care of us. And we're all part of this forest, whatever that means. We have our roots in you, but you give us life, and you help us to reach toward you, and you give us the nourishment that we need, and the protection that we need, and the care that we need. And you've been there throughout our lives, even though sometimes we don't recognize you. But sometimes we are able to see you. So, Father, we give you thanks for being in our stories. But it's not just a matter of you being in our story, as we learned from Ruth. We are in your story also. Whoever we are, wherever we've been, we're part of your salvation story. We're part of the gospel. Because you have given us faith in Jesus, we know that we will be among the crowds in heaven, singing his praises and yours. We're part of that story, and we don't know what's going to happen into the future. As Ruth may not have known, that David would be her great-grandson and that Jesus would come along. We don't know what will happen because you've been in our lives. We don't know what will happen to future generations. But we pray that whatever might happen, because it started with us, that you will be glorified, and that when we get to heaven, we'll be surprised and delighted to see your mercy throughout the generations, as you always have been showing it. Be with us throughout this week in all that we do for you and with you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, thank you, everybody. I see that a number of you have taken those Being Challenged books, almost all of you. This is pretty good. If you did, please, there's like a sign-out sheet there so that I know who took books. So if you didn't sign the sign-out sheet, please go and do that. And we're going to start working on those Sunday. So bring them next Sunday, and we'll get going on them. Actually, the first day is actually going to be Friday. So you could read the introduction on Friday, and we're going to talk about it in the Friday Zoom Bible study. And then we'll get cracking on it full blast starting next week, Sunday. Oh, and by the way, there's these white bracelets over there too. There's a little tub of those, so you can get those, Being Challenged, and wear those to remind yourself to do the workbook. It's a daily thing to do. It maybe take you 15 minutes to do each day. And take a bracelet if you want to remind yourself to do it. I'd suggest you don't leave it on continuously for all 40 days because it might get a little dingy, depending on whether you're sticking your hand down sewers and stuff like that or not. But you're welcome to them, and if we need more, we can always get some more. you're gonna take those to
Lucas, yeah.
Lucas? Okay.
Vicky will be over tomorrow.
Okay. I'm having we have 2 confirmation students, and I'm asking them to work through the book also, accompanied by an adult person who can hopefully, help them at least make sure that they're going through the book at the same time, and maybe that adult person will be able to answer questions. Who knows? If not, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, but I think it'll be a worthwhile experience for you. So, okay? Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good week. And God bless us, everyone, as